Hi, Estelden here. Microsoft had their Xbox showcase a few hours ago and it was pretty by the numbers, pretty safe for Microsoft. They had their Halo, their Forza, back to Fable, so it's a bit like a jump in the past, all the way back to the original Xbox, so not a lot has changed in 20 years. What's interesting to me though is it's pretty clear to me that E3 is gone, it's done. There's no way these developers are going to go back to a third-party event where they have to share the stage with all of these different companies. What you see with Microsoft is right now all eyes are on Microsoft, whether you're predominantly into Sony-based games, whether you're into the Nintendo Switch, whatever. As long as you have some sort of interest in what Microsoft's doing, all eyes are going to be on their press conference and what they're doing now. What these developers are going to see is that doing E3 is a bit like a school presentation where you might be pretty good, you come out, you do your presentation, everything's good, everyone claps, you're really proud of yourself. Next kid goes up there and he's got a PowerPoint. He's got something a little bit extra that's really, really impressive, and everyone's forgotten about you. Even though you had yours a few minutes ago, you're dead and forgotten. So that's what E3 can be like sometimes. We only have to look back to the year that Breath of the Wild was announced. There were some pretty interesting conferences from Microsoft and Sony. You got Bethesda, if they did one that year, I can't even remember. They're so forgettable. And I know that Nintendo did Breath of the Wild, and once they did that, all eyes were on Nintendo, Breath of the Wild, everyone forgotten about what came before. Breath of the Wild, that was the standout, everyone loved it, and it's all anyone I could say can remember from that year's E3. So we go into the Xbox showcase now, and I want to focus on the games that are the heavy hitters to me. They're the ones that I kind of feel interested in. They're the ones that I'm going to be looking up and keeping track of over the next year or so. While there are other kind of big ones like Forza, there's a few other interesting ones. I know the Initiative didn't show their game. That's one of their studios, and there's a few things going around. The games I'm kind of looking at are the ones where I feel we know the facts, we know what to expect, and they're the most interesting to me. So, looking at Halo Infinite to start with, I think Halo Infinite, what we saw, it's pretty much at this point what we'd expect if we're expecting something good. If we're being pessimistic, we'd say, alright, we're just going to get another Halo 5, there's a whole lot of marketing going on. We're going to get like a live service with another pretty bare bones campaign that's shorter than all of the other ones, but I think Microsoft are at least turning a corner. They're at least going to kind of jump back to probably an era that's not as good as Halo 3, but at least something that's where we should be or should have been in 2014 or whenever Halo 4 was. I feel like Halo Infinite's more course correction rather than like a really groundbreaking entry in the series. We saw some pretty gorgeous looking fields and just graphics areas in general, but the actual gameplay, what we were doing, it was really just where we should have been 5 or 6 years ago, because with Halo 4 and Halo 5, they just felt like generic FPS games. They didn't really feel like Halo, aside from the name and the characters. Not a lot to really love there. They were decent. I played through all the Halo games, I think. And they're comfortably the weakest. And we have to see now if the studio i343, I think it is, we have to really see if they're actually capable of making a good Halo game, or if at very best they're just going to be playing runners up and they're just trying to sort of capture that magic again. Halo's a series that's been going a long time. They're dangerously in the territory where it's going to be a series kind of like Star Wars, where there's more bad entries than there are good entries. And if Microsoft want Halo to actually have a long-term future beyond just the next console, if they want it to carry on and be like a Ratchet and Clank or anything else, they're not there yet. As much as you might think from the brand recognition and everything, when people think Halo, they think disappointment at the moment. They think we're just going to get something that's like a half-assed COD or whatever it is. It's not a game where people are rushing to play it. It's not the in thing. It's pretty fucking daggy at this point. So they got a lot of work to do. From what I saw, bare minimum of being something good. So we're not in a stage where it's looking crap and we've gone, no, we're just going to get more of the typical shit that we got in Halo 5. We're more in the territory of, yep, what we're seeing, pretty decent, but we're not out of the woods yet in terms of being happy with what they're dishing up. Avowed, And at first I was saying Avowed or what, I had to look this up, fairly pathetic, but Avowed looks like a game where Obsidian are just going to try and kind of, I would say they were going to try and really tackle what Bethesda's doing now. Skyrim and just that whole genre is now an untapped market. Bethesda have fucked around for a long time. We got Fallout 4, where they were far more interested in base building and trying to capture a new audience than just pleasing the people who went out and bought Fallout 3 and Skyrim in droves. It doesn't really make any sense. I don't understand how they, with all their different studios they have, that they didn't get one of those guys to make some sort of Skyrim clone or just something. When you're the market leaders in this open world RPG space and you didn't do it. Everyone had to go and play, I'd say good games in their own right, but kind of watered down versions in games like Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a lot of people who play games like that looking for the Skyrim experience, even though I'd say it's more in line with something that Ubisoft are doing. But they're not going to get it. There really hasn't been like a Skyrim killer ever. People might play Elder Scrolls Online, but it's a different beast. A real cash grab of a beast, I would say, when it comes to their microtransaction store. So steer clear. Wait for this. Maybe Avowed is the one we're looking for, but I can say that when it comes to Obsidian, they've actually got some they've got to make up for a bit of a squandered reputation, I would say, because The Outer Worlds was the game everyone was kind of touting out, and they're saying Mass Effect's dead, Bethesda are dead, we've got The Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds came out, first it went to the Epic Store, so no one was interested, the hype was all pretty much gone. Then it eventually came to Steam, and the people who had waited around and thought, oh yeah, that's that Outer Worlds game, I'd forgotten about that, there's no way I'm downloading anything that Tencent's involved in. Fair enough. They play Outer Worlds, and it's good, it's harmless, but it's certainly nothing special. It's a real by-the-numbers game, and Obsidian really don't want this to be in a similar vein, because if this is just something half-assed, and Obsidian are going to forever live with that reputation that they're that one studio, they got to make a Fallout, it was probably the best Fallout in a long time, but they haven't really had like a big game of their own, they've just been working off other people's work, so this has got to be the one. I think if they want to be able to have the freedom to keep making games under Microsoft that they want to do, Microsoft have come out, Obsidian have come out and said, no, we've got the freedom to do what we want, we haven't sold out, we're still doing the games that we want to do, this is just like we've got the financial backing to do anything we want. I think if they're going to have that freedom and that's going to continue, this has got to be like a real, it's going to be a massive seller. So we will see. Looking at this trailer, again, it's there's nothing original going on, probably not Obsidian's strong suit, having anything that's really groundbreaking, but I'll keep an eye on it because they've got good writers, they've had some great stuff in the past, and maybe this is the one where they actually make a real name for themselves and they're not kind of compared to Bethesda or someone else. Now, Rare, they're a studio that I just don't really know what they're doing anymore. They don't really have any identity. They're a studio that had classics, Nintendo 64, absolutely incredible. I think they saved Nintendo in that era from falling into pretty much irrelevance after Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time came out. Rare kept them going. They went into Microsoft, we got grabbed by the fucking ghoulies, and it's all been downhill ever since. Where we kind of got to, though, is when I saw Sea of Thieves and that it was a live service game, I thought that was going to be the end of them. I thought they would release that, no one would play it, the content was looking really half-assed from anyone who played, I think it was the beta, there was a lot of previews and things going out at that time, and it looked absolutely terrible. Came out, they did a lot of work on it, and from what I gather, it's been doing reasonably well for what it is, with so many live service games. To have a pirate game where no one can really tell you what you actually do if you ask them, hey, well, is this game fun? What are you doing? And do you go on quest? You do this? Oh, no, you just sort of, you go around and you make your own fun. Whenever I hear that, it kind of sets off alarm bells that it's not really a game with any real content, but apparently it's pretty good and they've had some sort of success with it. Everwild, on the other hand, we know from what I've seen not really much about. They've gone on about exploring, we go around, we do this. That is every fucking game these days. Any game with some sort of open style world, you get to explore, there's all these things going on. Yeah, but what do we do? Like, I care about the content. That is the main thing. And a lot of these games content seems to take a back seat to just making a game that's really marketable and really sellable. But when you step foot in there, not a lot to do. So Rare, I think they've still got ground to make up. Ever since they fucked me over with Nuts and Bolts, I've had a bit of a bone to pick with them. They're not the same studio they were. I think it's really only Greg Mails and is it Robin Beanland? I think he makes some really fantastic music and did in the past. I think they're like the two big names that are left at Rare. Hopefully they come up with something that's not just a live service, something that brings us back to the good old days, and I'll keep an eye on it. Maybe it'll be alright. And if it comes out on Steam or something like that, not just the Windows Store, then it's probably going to be worth checking out to some degree, because Microsoft seem to let these studios polish their games and have a bit of time on them. Now, of course, the one that everyone predicted, everyone has kind of known about for a long time, but it's meant to be a surprise, that is Fable. I don't know what to say about it, because I think it's a really good series. I think it really stands out in what it does. There's a lot of series. You think Assassin's Creed, you think Horizon, you think Modern Zelda to some degree. It's hard to really describe in words. It's hard to kind of differentiate them if you actually want to just have a conversation about them with someone who's not aware of these games. Horizon, all you can really talk about is an open world. You go and do quests. Breath of the Wild, yeah, you go and find stuff. Open world, you run about. And then whatever it is, Assassin's Creed, I mean, you just chase the fucking minimap around. So when it comes to Fable, the original had a really distinct feel. I absolutely loved it. I love the linear nature of it, how it's just content. Lots of interesting things. And in between these towns, there's so much to do. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Has a lot of fun. Really, really cool aspects. I think it's got a lot of originality to it. And it is a shame that after that first game, they weren't able to really expand on that and take it in a really big kind of expansive direction with more to do, because I didn't feel the love when it came to 2 and 3, just not quite as good. My worry with Fable is Playground Games. A lot of people love the Forza Horizon series. They think they're absolutely incredible. From what I've seen, I'd probably say if I was going to pick a racing game to play, I've got absolutely no interest in them. It would be Forza Horizon though. That's where I would go first, because they look like racing games that, again, they've got the content to back themselves up. They're not just racing around. You've got to have an interest in cars and motorsport. These are games that, apparently from what I've heard, you can enjoy, even if you're someone who just wants to dabble in that kind of genre. You might have a bit of love there for those sorts of games. They're basically going into this with nothing. Seems like Microsoft want to recapture the magic that Sony had with Horizon, because the Killzone developer, Guerrilla Games I think it is, they basically had the same thing. They'd made FPSs all their life. Suddenly they come out with Horizon. It's a smash hit. They're now making a sequel. Everyone loves it. They're probably hoping to recapture it with Playground Games and Fable, hoping they can transition over. I think it's easier said than done. I would probably say that Guerrilla Games are the exception, not the rule in this case. So hopefully they've got something cooking here. I know it's been in development since at least 2018, and that comes from the fact that Microsoft, I think it was at E3 2018, talked about the fact that Playground Games were making an open world title. This is it. Fable. So I have to see what happens with that one. I can say one thing, Microsoft have made a bit of a point here of not announcing release dates anywhere, except for, I think, Halo. It's pretty much, here's what we're doing. A couple of years ago, or last year, we came out and said we've acquired all these studios. They got nothing that they're working on yet. We're in a really shit place, so give us a bit of time. And now this is meant to be kind of where they reap the rewards, and the general public are rewarded for playing the patient game. Microsoft are in a tricky spot, I would say, because the Xbox One for them was an absolute bomb from a lot of accounts. I know it's done pretty well in North America. Here in Australia, it seems to be doing okay from what I can say. There's not a lot of kind of like a really big direction where it's just Sony, no one likes Xbox, like I think it is in Europe. It's a little bit more consistent. The problem that Microsoft really had was just that transition. They went from kind of being on like the top of the mountain and thinking they could do anything they wanted with the Xbox. Brand loyalty, doesn't matter, we can just do what we want because all these people are just going to follow us. The brand's just here, we don't need to maintain anything. That was shown to be bullshit. because PC around sort of 2012, 2013, 2014, it made a big comeback, which is ironic because Microsoft, I think, were in a lot of ways, they were responsible for fucking over PC games early on in the 2000s. They abandoned PC development for the most part. I think Halo Combat Evolved, that was on PC, and then they steered clear from it with the sequels. There might have been a port of Halo 2, but there was really not a focus on it at all. And there was a lot of developers who pretty much said fuck you to PC for a long time, and it was only when Valve and Steam that they went, nah, we're going to rebuild this market from scratch. That's when things started to change, and now we're in the position where we're kind of like Todd Howard, and we're saying, who's laughing now? Because PC is certainly back. It's the main platform, and Microsoft know if they're going to make a really big landmark with gamers, it's only going to happen if they please the PC audience. They've made a lot of PR noise when it comes to getting MCC, the Halo collection, to Steam. That's something that was seen as a bit of a good guy act. It's not just going to come to their shitty launcher. They're going to mix and match and go around with it. Would have loved to see it come to GOG as well, just to make their intentions clear. But what we're really going to need to now wait for is whether these new games are going to just be on the store. Microsoft aren't going to want to risk losing a lot of that revenue and releasing it on Steam. I think it's a mistake. I think if they go down that path again, they're just going to alienate everyone once more, because a lot of these games, whether it's Halo Infinite, Avowed, whatever, they're not games anymore that PC players are just going to, I need to get my hands on this no matter what. A lot of those people, they used to own an Xbox One, and I was one of them. I was someone who picked up an Xbox One thinking, I'm going to get all the Sony games because I got a PS4, I'm going to get all the Microsoft games, this is going to be fantastic. The result was, there was just a lot of mediocrity. There was really not that much special when I think about the Xbox One and the exclusive. I would say the most memorable game is Ori and the Blind Forest. And if you told that to Microsoft back in 2013, they would have laughed at you. Because that's just a pretty small indie game. I don't think they expected much from it. And in recent times, it's probably been the most hyped game because they've just come out with a lot of rubbish. They had Quantum Leap. Cool idea, but when your main gimmick in a game is that it's a TV show, probably not something that's going to be like a real massive hit in the gaming industry, because you're already going down a path where gameplay is not really a focus, and that's led them here where they've had to completely rebuild and start from scratch. The future of Microsoft then is going to hinge, I would say, on Game Pass. It's the only thing in the last few years that has really put them a step up from Sony, where Sony are kind of winding things down. They've had a couple of absolute duds, I would say, in The Last of Us Part 2 and Death Stranding. And now they're at a stage where they've got nothing to really compete with Microsoft on except for games. Price point, service point, Microsoft have them completely covered. And I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to get to a stage where Sony have to release all of their games on PC too, because I'm sick of this. I don't want to have to pick up a Sony console every single time. It's an absolute pain having to log it out of the cupboard just to play Bloodborne or whatever it is. I just want to play it on PC. So if Microsoft are doing well, that means there's more chance of that happening. So bring that on, because I'm rooting for them. I hope we get to that stage. Game Pass is going to be the future, or I would really be surprised if it's profitable at this point. It really seemed like something where they were kind of doing an Epic Games, where they released a launcher, everything sounded fantastic, bells and whistles, fairies, everything. Oh my god, we're going to help developers out by giving them a really small cut, unlike Evil Steam, which are just taking all the money. But you know, they're not actually making a profit on anything, so it's going to end one day. Once they've got the market share, they're going to put the price up. I think that's what Microsoft will do. I think if they get in a stage where they have a foothold in everything, the price and the value proposition, that'll start to change and even out a little bit more. I don't think it'll get to a stage where it's a pile of crap, it's a rip-off. Phil Spencer knows that this is what's making Xbox at the moment. These games are going to be the icing on the cake, but Game Pass needs to be the revolutionary delivery aspect, I would suppose, when it comes to getting games into gamers' hands, because that is the thing that has made Xbox this generation. And as someone who doesn't give a fuck about the console, to have something that's a service come to PC and make us kind of think, ooh, Xbox have actually come to the table, that's what's got everyone's attention. So they need to keep on with it. And if they do that, if all these games are fantastic, then I think they might have a future in the next few years. I think they might get in a position where Sony are playing catch up to some degree, because I haven't seen enough from Sony that's more impressive than Xbox at this stage. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you enjoyed the video, like, sub, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.